The past few seasons, one of those teams to me that's just kind of toiled in mediocrity and really lacked an identity as a team, as an organization, is the Tennessee Titans. And 2013 was another example of that. And it wasn't all that surprising to me whether or not it was necessarily the right way to go or not. They ultimately were going to make a change. They fired Mike Munchak. They brought in Ken Wisenhunt because like I said, the last few years they just kind of had toiled away in mediocrity, really didn't have a definitive identity on offense, really didn't have a definitive identity on defense. So now it's a new era, so to speak, a new man in charge, and the Tennessee Titans and their fans, I'm sure, are hoping for better things to come in 2014, but the ultimate question is, will they be? Well, the Titans this offseason, I'm really not that sold in the offseason. I just got to be honest with you. They signed guys like Wesley Woodyard and Michael Orr and Sean Phillips, Dexter McCluster. They bring in Ken Wisenhunt, and they bring in Ray Horton, who I think is a hell of a defensive coordinator. But they switched to a 3-4 defensive scheme that I really, frankly, don't think they have the personnel in place in order to run and be able to run effectively, at least this season. And that's a bit of a surprise to me. I thought for a defense that wasn't terrible but wasn't great, switching it up and changing your scheme without having that personnel in place to begin with, and then not really going out there and getting the personnel that fits that system, I thought was questionable to say the least. Not to mention the fact that they frankly lost their best player on defense, or some people say Jarrell Casey's their best player, at least their second best player on defense in Alteron Werner, the star corner who went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in free agency. Chris Johnson, the longtime face of the franchise on the offensive side of the ball, he was released and he went on to the New York Jets. Right tackle David Stewart, after so many years, he's gone as well. So some big losses for the Tennessee Titans. And I think when you look at it, it creates that environment where a lot of people are uncertain about this team in 2014. And a lot of people are looking down on them. And frankly, I kind of understand that. Now, in terms of strengths for this team, I do like their wide receiving core. I really like Kendall Wright. I've been a big fan of his since he was at Baylor. I like what Justin Hunter brings to the table. So, for a young quarterback like a Jake Locker and a Tennessee Titans offense that, frankly, is going to need some big plays, you've got a couple of guys outside with Wright and Hunter that I think can bring some big plays, and I would expect both Wright and Hunter to have very nice seasons in 2014. I will also say I do like the coaching infrastructure in place in Tennessee. I think Ken Wisenhunt is a good offensive mind and a good NFL head coach. And at some point in time, that is going to pay dividends for the Tennessee Titans. I like some of the staff that he's assembled around him as well. I think they've got a solid coaching infrastructure in place, and that is a nice strength to have on your team. In terms of some question marks for this team, first and foremost, you got to look at Jake Locker. Here's a guy that was taken 8th overall in 2011, and one thing he's been unable to do in the last 3 seasons is stay healthy and establish himself as that franchise quarterback. 2014, they didn't sit there and draft a quarterback early like some envisioned that they might do. Now that they passed on guys in the draft like Bridgewater and Manziel, they stuck with Jake Locker for another year, a draft choice by a previous head coach and regime. Now, Ken Wisenhunt, what's he going to get out of Jake Locker? What's Jake Locker going to bring to the table this season? I have some concerns about that offensive line as well. Losing David Stewart, bringing in Michael Orr, frankly, is a bit of a downgrade. And this was an offensive line that struggled at times, especially in the running game in 2013. And in 2014, if you want to keep Jake Locker healthy and you want to do anything at all as a franchise, as an organization, you got to keep him healthy. That offensive line is going to have to protect him and protect him well all season long. I also have some concerns and some questions about the Titans switching to the 3-4 defense. Like I said, again, I'm just not sold that this organization has the personnel in place to effectively run that scheme, at least this year. It's going to be interesting to see how some of these guys, fit in new positions, like Derek Morgan going to outside linebacker, Jarrell Casey perhaps playing end and the 3-4. These are guys that are maybe going away from their strengths, and I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about that. Looking at their schedule for 2014, since they're in the AFC South, they get the AFC North, they get the NFC East, then they get the Jets in Kansas City. Not a lot of key things I think to watch with the Tennessee Titans because, frankly, I'm just not that high on this team this year. Sorry to disappoint you, Titans fans. I hope I'm wrong for your sake, but I'm just not seeing it. Some of the keys to the success where maybe this team can outperform some of the very frankly low expectations for them in the season to come. They need Locker to stay healthy, and then not only stay healthy but play well. And at moments he's flashed that ability to be a quality NFL starter, but that's only in flashes and only in brief moments. And again, if he doesn't stay healthy, it doesn't matter. And if he doesn't stay healthy, this team is destined for the toilet bowl as far as I'm concerned. They need that offensive line to play better, more consistently, both in terms of opening up holes in the running game and providing the pass protection that Jake Locker needs in order, again, to keep him upright and keep him healthy. They need Bishop Sankey to step up and become that featured back. He really, frankly, hasn't been very good in the preseason. He's buried in the depth chart right now. They drafted him in the second round for a reason. They need him to be a guy that can come in and at some point in time take the reins and become that featured back that they envisioned when they drafted him back in May out of Washington. Another way, again, to help protect your young quarterback, Jake Locker. And they need this team with some pieces that have questionable fits in this 3-4 defense to adjust and acclimate and play well. Because, frankly, this defense is going to need to play well if the Titans have any shot at all of even, frankly, being really respectable, in my opinion, in 2014. I'm really not that high on the Tennessee Titans. I think this is a team that lacks an identity. I think this is a team that lacks talent. I think they lack the proper pieces on the defensive side to fit the 3-4 scheme that they're running. I'm not sold at all on Jake Locker being the franchise quarterback. I'm uncertain about their running game. I'm uncertain about their offensive line, even when you throw in the fact that they drafted Taylor Lewan in the first round and they drafted Trent Warmack in the first round last year. And it just, even guys like Warmack and Lewan, I'm still uncertain about this offensive line, uncertain about the running game, uncertain about the quarterback, uncertain about the entire defense. That's not a good indicator for success in 2014. Ultimately, I think the Tennessee Titans will give it a game effort, but they'll fall up very short this year. I'd expect them to finish 4-12, maybe 5-11. Maybe have some moments where Whisenhunt and Horton get a lot out of them, but in general, I expect them to bring up the rear in the AFC South and end up with a top 5 pick in the 2015 NFL Draft.